Anisha. MVP. Today, we are hosting our first Talk2 series. Like we rightly publicized, this is an event where you all can ask live question on topic. And today we'll be focusing on Azure Infrastructure Security, which our speaker will be talking to us on. That's Imoh Etuk. Now, before I have Imoh Etuk take over, Imoh Etuk is a cloud and DevOps engineer whose experience has cut across Microsoft Azure as well as AWS. Imoh is a Microsoft MVP. He's also a Microsoft certified trainer. He's one of our leaders here in Azure Nigeria community. And welcome, Imoh. We're happy to have you here. We can't wait to ask you a question and have an interesting interactive session. So over to you, Imoh.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Justin. That was a good one. And without wasting much of our time, today's section is not like a focused teaching section per se. The community have been handling a lot of series of training study series. So today's section is just one of the very first new edition of a live chat section with one of the community leaders, which happened to start with me. And after today, other ones will come as well. So we are going to be talking on how we can chat about Azure infrastructure and security aspect of Azure. So I believe at the end of today, you're going to get some insights into what you did not know or what you have already known. You may intend to revamp your knowledge, kind of trying to refresh what you know before through this section. So I will go ahead to talk about the topic. Somehow is something that people will feel that, what is Azure Infra-Sec? Like I said before, this topic is what I just think of it as, okay, why not focus on the infrastructure aspect of Azure and security? And if you look at Azure and any other cloud environment, security and infrastructure are the key pillars of cloud computing. So there's no how you can escape talking about compute, networking, and storage databases, and they know how you can also escape talking about the virtual network and the other security tools like Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Defender for DevOps, Azure Active Directory, privileged identity, and all those access control policies and all that. So they know how you can escape those things. And the agenda for today, we're going to be exploring some Azure Global Infrastructure, get to know how Azure Global Infrastructure is arranged, and also learn about Azure Regional Infrastructure and talk about some of the security tools that are available for you to manage your Azure cloud environment. And then we'll look at some Q&A section that we have. So before I move on, I would like us to look at a video that's well placed on Microsoft Azure Global Infrastructure website, and it's a very good one for us to refresh our memory and see how it goes. So I'm going to play it so all of us who can quickly look at it together. I believe my network will be faster. Okay. Okay. So pending, I'm going to drop this link is as part of the study mode link for you to go on your own and watch that video later. It's a way of learning about Azure Global Infrastructure on your own. So we'll move down to the text that we have to explain today. From the screen there, we have, you can see from the global map, so that these spots are where Azure data center lies. In the region, the various region you have Azure. have their data center. So now Azure Global Infrastructure is made up of two key components. Like I said before, you cannot talk and escape infrastructure on Azure. You can also talk and escape networking and security also follow. So physical infrastructure and connective network components. Then you see that Microsoft has the overall power when it comes to over physical infrastructure and networking. That networking and physical infrastructure is totally out of customer control when you're talking about the infrastructure aspect of the cloud. And if you are talking about the platform as a service, you do not need to manage any infrastructure. So solely, in fact, that is the full meaning of cloud computing. You as a customer, you and I as customer only have to rent a space and host our infrastructure and host our application and all that. So the physical component is comprised of over 200 plus 200 physical data centers. I think Azure, in among other cloud computing and other cloud providers, Microsoft Azure has the largest physical data centers arranged into regions and linked by one of the largest interconnected networks on the planet. So with the connectivity of the global Azure network, each of the Azure data centers provide high availability, low latency, scalability, and the latest advancement in cloud infrastructure, all running on the Azure platform. So together, like I said before, you're not going to just be, I'm not going to be the only one teaching. That's the essence of live chat. As you can see, we are joining us via Microsoft Teams. We don't need it to be a one way whereby only the speaker will do the talking while the participant will just listen and all that. We needed to interact. It's an interactive section. So to do that, I will not be the only one speaking. I will feel free to draw my attention and maybe to trip in some contribution and all that as we go along. Together, like I continue from the screen, together this component keep data entirely within the trusted Microsoft network and IP traffic, never enters the public internet. It is worth knowing that anything that you put in Azure, any data you put there does not transfer through the public internet. By default, nothing passes through the internet, except when you want to put it into a public internet, you can have what Azure has what they call public IP, and that public IP there's what they call internet gateway. It's internet gateway that will actually bring internet access to your private network on Azure. So then what makes up the Azure Global Infrastructure? Who can tell me one of the things we already have them listed on the screen? So like the first one is data center. Of course, they know how we can do without data center. Data center is the unique physical locations. Location, it can be buildings. It is located all over the globe. And that house the group of network computers and servers that's actually serve clients. So that physical buildings, you have maybe, for instance, I'm talking to you right from my house, and let's say Microsoft Teams is being hosted in my place, in my house now. So this is the physical building that I have, and that will be powered. It will be powered in terms of power supply will be there, network will be there. That is the reason why you are able to actually interact with Azure, are able to create resource and post and get the desired result that you need. So now another one in the tray is regions. Region is when you combine one data center, maybe one or two data center, it forms a region. Like it shows in the, let me go back to the first screen, like it showed here, you see that the data center is, the region is blue, data center is, you see, 1, 2, 3. Like you have up to a set of data center that is deployed within the latency defined perimeter network. Why is it why do you have it interlocated, like a kind of within, closely located to one another? Is because it will help you to prevent low latency, to prevent a latency, reduces the network delay, the speed in terms of caching and delivering data to the users. That's why you're able to have them co-located to one another. So that's what, so region, if you want to really understand, is that when you deploy data center, set up data center in that are closely located, and all of them are connected through a dedicated regional low latency network. So that's what region is all about. And you now have another one in the series that we have is Azure Geography. I don't know how many of you have known about this before. Azure Geography is when you have I should say that is a kind of discrete market where we have to deploy at least one or more regions. Sorry, excuse me, that preserve data residency and compliant boundaries. Kind of when you want to deploy something within Lagos State. I think I should use Lagos State in particular. And Lagos State has a specific law that data must not go out of Lagos and a kind of Lagos boundaries, Lagos State territory. That all the like I will pick this one. There was a news. I don't know if it's confirmed, but I heard in the news that all the banks in Nigeria, commercial banks in Nigeria, are not authorized to host their data outside the geographical regions of Nigeria. So there's a kind of boundary when you have such things that that complies with the data residency and compliant kind of laws in place. So that kind of place that Azure creates is geographic region, a kind of Azure geography. That's what is known as. So I don't know if that really gives you the perfect understanding of Azure geography. And I believe you can also ask questions if you need more explanation on that. So we have another one in the series is a global network. Of course, like I said before, you cannot do anything on Microsoft Azure. Oh, sorry, availability zone is the next one. Okay, availability zone now. Azure availability zones are unique physical locations within an Azure region and offer high availability. Why do you need to introduce your resources, or why do you need to use availability zone? Is to be able to at least withstand failure. Like each of the availability zones are well equipped with independent power and cooling and even network. They have their own network and they have their own power. So even if when one region fail, you can always fall back to one of the availability zone that you actually paid for. I don't think availability zone is free because the more you replicate your data, you need to pay. So it's not free. It's not a free tool. So and also what we have the global network. I think this is where you have all the components of network that come networking, Azure networking that comes in, and you have something like Azure VNet, Azure Virtual Network. So the Azure Global Network refers to all of the component in networking and is comprised of the Microsoft Global Wide Area Network. When you heard about, and it also include points of presence. If you look at in locations of the world, Microsoft has what they call points of presence. And they also have fiber optic all over. So point of presence will help, like if you know about Azure CDN, it helps you to fetch data closer to the customer, to the nearest edge location that the customer can easily access the data. So now we go back to, there's what they call edge zone as well. Azure edge zone is the kind of a footprint extension of Azure in terms of maybe in a densely populated area, maybe like I will look for a city in the US, maybe like city of New York or Texas, where we have, I don't know, the city that we have a lot of Nollywood art, so Hollywood actors and all that. So that's kind of city where you have the population is densely high populated. So we have that. That's where Azure will deploy edge location to, so that data can easily they create something they call edge zones. Edge zones support edge zone there. So and the kind of virtual machines and container that will be deployed there. We're going to first, are not going to first issue of latency in terms of speed. The data will be easily delivered and cached to customers and all that. So we have Azure Space, which is also part of the global infrastructure on Microsoft Azure. And Azure Space is I think is a strategic initiative that has to do with through the power of space. Maybe those that works in the space, and all that. Azure also has extended a capability to also work for those who work in the space as well. So Azure Orbital, and I might not really explain much all of them, so because of our time, but the Orbital and Azure Orbital is also has to do with space strategy. It works hand in hand with the Azure Space, and it's fully managed ground station service that enables customers to communicate in terms of maybe fetching data through satellites and spacecraft. And they also offer pay-as-you-go. They're also on a pay-as-you-go basis, but it's not. I don't think it's for all the customers, of course. So we have the Microsoft Global Wide Area Network. Is the biggest network that connects hundreds of data centers in regions around the world and offers high availability and capacity that will enable you to fetch, to deploy and get your application up and running, and also customer also use it without downtime. So we have Azure points of presence. I talked about, I made mention of it in our previous discussion. So Azure points of presence is often abbreviated as POP. I think it's an access point where you have, just like, okay, I'll use the example like let me say in a hotel room, or in a hotel where you have, or in an office where you have the main guy. The main guy can be the main access point or the main router who serve a particular location within your office. So now you need to, for you to extend your network speed or reach, in terms of reach, to other offices that are far away. Maybe you run a very big office that has to do with story buildings, maybe up to 24-story building. All you need to do is to put repeaters. Most of us who has worked in the network field, you put repeaters. That repeaters are called access points, so that it will repeat the access from the main guy, the main router that we have in one place, station one place. So that is exactly what Azure is doing through point of presence. These points of presence are strategically located in regions across the globe. So that is how that will work. So we have regional network gateways as well. So regional network gateways are kind of a hyperscale data center interconnect. It helps to connect between one data center and another. That's what this one does within a region. Remember, data centers is within a region, and you have up to one or two data center in a region. And within region, you also have, within data center, you have availability zone deployed to it, and all that. So we have done that. And do you have any question? We're going to interact, remember? So it's not like a one-way stuff. So if you have any contribution to make, or maybe observation, or you want to really want us to explore more, the floor is open for you. And I will really welcome questions as we go along. So what we have in the world, you cannot talk about cloud infrastructure or Microsoft Azure infrastructure without talking about cloud service models, because they are the bedrock in platform cloud. And it also gives you choice of going to, I don't want to do this one, I want to do this one. Like if you want to, depending on what on your business needs, you can decide not to use platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. So now what we do is, now if you look at the screen, we have software as a service. We also have platform as a service. Software as a service is for you as a customer, it's for you and I. Take for instance, like Microsoft Team that we use is part of Microsoft 365, and Microsoft 365 is a typical software as a service solution. In the sense that, as I wanted to host this section today, I just log in, schedule the section, and Microsoft takes care of the underlying infrastructure. I don't even know where the server is hosted. I don't know this. We are even doing recording as well. So all those stuff are what are the services that you get when you leverage a software as a service solution, such as Microsoft 365 and the Team application. So we are just using it. We don't do anything. All I can do is to maybe register user, create account for user, add user, and remove user, and all those things. So I don't need to do anything. I don't need to deploy servers and all that. So a product that is run and managed by the service provider. In this screen, I actually don't worry about how the service is maintained. It just works and remains available anytime you want it. So platform as a service, you can see the screen is we have Salesforce is part of it. It also have Google Mail. It's also part of the what's it called, the software as a service category. And we also have something like in fact, I think something like Azure DevOps. Let's not confuse that. Azure DevOps is also a software as a service solution. When you pay for Azure DevOps server, you don't need to host anything. You don't need to do anything. You don't even know how it works, how it maintains. So it works for you. GitHub is also software as a service. People do mix up these things. So it's good that we say it out most time. So GitHub is also a software as a service. So if you are looking for more software as a service example, so that is it. So platform as a service is what for developers only. Just the administrators can as well use it. So focus on the deployment and management of your apps. All you need to do, they call it bring your own app and come on host. That's the perfect time to use. You don't need to deploy server. You don't need to do anything. Just specify your language. You can deploy an API application, a mobile app, and maybe web app, and anything that you want to deploy. So another one is the IaaS, which is the most major focus for today's section. Then is the basic building blocks for cloud IT. Provide access to networking features, computers, and data storage space. Don't worry about IT staff, data centers, and hardware. The only thing you don't manage in software, in infrastructure as a service, is the IT staff. No IT staff, those that are manning the data center for Microsoft, we don't pay them. We don't pay. Let me ask, has anyone ever paid for data center subscription or have you ever paid for data center? Have you ever, have you ever managed data center on your own when maybe you are deploying a virtual machine? No, nobody has ever done that. So, and hardware, you don't need to maintain hardware. All what you need to do is to ensure that your software is up to date. No, not even software. Microsoft can do patching of software. All what you need to manage is the data that you host on on your VM and the access to your VM. Security comes in. That's why today's topic section is very important, as focusing on those two major cloud computing tools or platform. So now our focus will be on infrastructure as a service. Microsoft has made it possible. They are giving you choice. When we talk about Microsoft, like the infrastructure as a service, they give you choice to some of the benefits that you get is that when deploying infrastructure as a service, that you can innovate it to meet your terms. Imagine if you can choose to check your server, your VM to meet what you need, what you really want to do. And VM are built to meet enterprise grade infrastructure. They know amount of, just like you having high-end servers. Those days when you need to buy your server and host on those people still do, those who have private data center, on those who run on the hybrid cloud environment also buy servers. So it's something that Microsoft are giving you the chance, the choice of choosing your own, defining your own virtual machine to meet what you need. And it's consistent across hybrid and multi-cloud environment. Yes, that's what infrastructure as a service is known as. The same way you have it on Microsoft Azure, is the same way you have it on other cloud platform. So it's not like it's peculiar to it all. There are few changes, and also you can as well deploy your VM to work with your on your premises as well. So that is one of the functionalities one of the benefits that you get while using this. And kind of unmatched security and compliance, of course. We all know Microsoft is a very compliance company, Microsoft Azure. If I start listing the compliance bodies that control Microsoft and so the cloud, we won't finish today. So just bear in mind that Microsoft has one of the highest compliance when it comes to kind of regulatory, and the security. I learned that any there's no solution that is listed on Azure without meeting a specific global regulatory security status. They can't list on the cloud, can be listed on the cloud. So first of all, by default, cloud is secured. So all you need to just do is to take the extra step to ensure that your data is more secure the way you want it. So these are some of the benefits that you need to gain. So we are going to focus on the enterprise grade infrastructure. Of course, we are business people. We come from the part of business whereby everything we do as maybe cloud admin or DevOps engineer or infrastructure engineer is focusing on deploying to an organization. So that's why we picked this. So in this enterprise grade infrastructure, we have compute, storage, and networking as the most prominent one, as the most prominent component. Compute, storage, networking. Other ones are there, which can be derived from these three. You can have Azure functions and all that. So, but let's move down to storage. Let me talk about. I think I'll mix something. Sorry, let me project again. So we have the compute option. Now, compute option is when we talk about compute, you will hear something like a virtual machine. Virtual machines can be provisioned in Windows or Linux in Azure, and you can do this in seconds with the configuration of your choice. It does not take time to deploy a virtual machine. You can use the Azure portal directly. You can also use either Azure CLI or PowerShell to deploy it. And you can also use maybe Azure SDK of your choice, maybe an Azure Resource Management template to deploy it. And when you talk about virtual machines, there are other things like a virtual machine scale set, and to achieve higher availability by auto-scaling to create thousands of VMs in minutes, you can use scale set. And you can also use Azure Spot virtual machines. Azure Spot virtual machines is you renting unused VM at a particular time and use. But if for best practice, you do not use Spot VM for data that are important, because when the time is up and the data will be gone, that you only use it for temporary application, maybe a one-time application that the data is not to be kept for future purpose, because once this thing is expired, it's gone. So that's one thing about it. And another one you can do with when it comes to compute is you can also deploy Azure Kubernetes service. Azure Kubernetes service, of course, enables to deploy and run your app in Kubernetes cluster, but in this case, it is managed for you. You're not the one that manages it, it's Azure. And also, you can also deploy Azure function to accelerate the app development and using an event-driven serverless architecture as well. And you can also deploy what they call Azure Service Fabric. When you want to deploy microservices and orchestrate containers on Windows and Linux, that's when you can bring it Azure Service Fabric. And of course, that's what you can do with compute solution and Microsoft Azure. So we go down to storage. When we talk about storage, we have a lot of Azure provide you with I didn't talk about, okay, let me, for compute, virtual machines are available in various sizes, like the vCPUs, and you can select up to 12 terabyte of memory. You can get up to 3.9 or 3.7 million local storage IOPS. That is a input output per second per VM. Azure allowed that up to 3.7 or 3.7 up. And also, you can also take advantage of up to 30 gigabytes Ethernet and cloud-first deployment of 200 Gbps in InfiniBand on VM. So the VM you see, if you deploy a VM, you just think maybe just deploying VM. There are a lot of stuff that are behind it. a lot of tools. And I always advise people when you deploy VM, don't just, maybe if you are in a learning process, you just created your first VM, just go back to Azure Portal, to the VM blade, and learn about all the components. Know what each of them is, and all that. So I jump down to storage. Storage, of course, Microsoft has a very secure, high performance, reliable, and storage solution. It's also scalable in nature. So for you to leverage upon when you are deploying your application, like if you want to do something like in storage, you also have options for storage services like we have Azure Files, Azure Blob Storage, and a lot of them and all that. And you with storage, we also provide you with the Azure Disk Storage, which you can use for your virtual machine and all that. And there's also Azure Blob Storage and Object Storage for kind of cloud native workloads. Like you can use it to archives data as well. When you're storing data, remember that we have about three tiers of storage service. We have the hot tier, we have the archive tier, and we have the infrequent. Is it infrequent? The one that you infrequently access the data, but the archive is the data you want to store up to like 180 days before you can access. So we also have Azure Data Lake, which is part of the storage option in Azure. And Azure Data Lake enables you to it provides you with a massively scalable, secure data storage solution that is high performing and is good for analytic workloads most time you want to do. And we also have Azure Files. Azure Files, just as you have file shares on your server, if you are familiar with Microsoft Windows Server, maybe it's up to 2022, you see that you have file shares, the way you share your files. So Microsoft Azure also provides you with what is called Azure Files storage, and it's basically used mostly by your virtual machine to do that. So we also have, with Azure Storage, you can also witness like Azure NetApp Files. It's an enterprise-grade Azure file shares powered by NetApp. I think it's a third-party solution, but Microsoft also has it then. Then we also have Azure File Sync. Azure File Sync helps you in terms of if you're running a hybrid cloud environment, I need to share data with your on-premises. You need to replicate your data between your on-premises server and Azure VM and the VM and the storage you have in Azure. It's a very good solution. I've used it before. I've used Azure File Sync. In fact, I used it as last week. It's a very good solution that helps you to replicate your data. So we also have Azure Stack Edge. It's a part of the storage solution on Azure. Cloud storage gateway it provide kind of a gateway to transfer data efficiently and easily between cloud and the edge. Then we also have Azure Data Box. Of course, Azure Data Box is if you want to transfer your data in and out of Azure quickly and cost effectively, you need to request for a box from Microsoft Azure directly, and they'll send the data box. When you load your data, you send it back, something like that. So that is how Azure Data Box is used. And I would like to take question now. And I think I'm being the only one doing the talking. And this is an interactive section. That's why we come to Teams. Let's interact. We have a section. If you have a question, let's raise open. I believe you can all hear me. If you can hear me, say hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
And I think someone did send a question. Basically, the person was like, where does zero trust comes in security? The person wants to understand where zero trust comes in security.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on to the next. We are entering into security tools. We have spent 30 minutes already. So when it comes to Azure, security tools is important. Security is important, and Azure has made it possible, has provided you with some tools that you need to fly as a cloud engineer or as an administrator. So one of the things that has to do with security when it comes to security, security will enable some of the tools. Now, okay, I may mention of identity and okay, I didn't mention identity and access management is one of the tools. Then threat protection, cloud security, information protection, discover, and okay, you start with by identifying someone and granting the person access to your resources on Azure. Then you move down to protecting, guarding against threats that can come from maybe hackers and all that, the man in the middle. And you can also implement some cloud security tool that Azure has made in place, like a security tool like a Azure Network Security Group. We can also have Azure Security Center. Now it's Microsoft Defender for Cloud, one of the tools that you use. Then we also have a lot of things to let's explore. Then Azure Security Pillar, there's what they call Azure Security Pillars. And from the Spring Security, one of the most important aspects of any architecture, it provides the following assurances against when you have security in place. There'll be this confidence that you have, and you'll be able to, in terms of data abuse, there'll be confidentiality in terms of all the data that you have. Most of them are confidential. So you'll be able to ensure a kind of data integrity, and this data will always be available to your client, to your customers, anytime they need it, because there's no alteration. There's nothing like DDoS attack in between, because most time when you're sending something, the other one and the recipient gets something else, that means there was an alteration between the transfer of the data. That's where you see something like the encryption level in your browser and all those stuff. So, and in that case, the data integrity will be compromised, and there'll be no integrity again in that data, and the availability might be delayed. The website that you want to retrieve data from might keep looping and browsing and rolling, and you wouldn't get it on time. So when you have security in place, we are able to gain confidentiality and integrity level of data, and also the availability of data is assured and all that. So that's what the three things, pillars that data can do for you, that security can do for you. So now you cannot talk about security without talking about shared responsibility. Now, shared responsibility models in Azure is very key when you want to talk about how you, the customer, okay, your responsibility as the customer, and Microsoft responsibility as the cloud provider. So now your own, you have to take note that anything that has to do with data information. Okay, why do you even need to move to hand over the security of your this thing to a customer, to a client, a cloud provider like Microsoft? Is one of the things that one of the responsibilities that you need to source out as part, because you may not have the adequate skill and even the tools and also the time. So Microsoft taking part of the responsibility will enable you to focus more on other parts of your business, on the most important part of your business, knowing fully well that your security is intact with a cloud provider like Microsoft. So that's where this responsibility comes in. And being that you have shared the one Microsoft is responsible for handling, you now go to bed. No, you don't go to bed, you don't sleep. Fully understand fully well that regardless of the type of deployment or maybe cloud deployment that you buy or that you leverage on, maybe it's software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure, or even on-premises solely for you, of course, you should know that securing of endpoints where anybody can penetrate, or maybe user account, and access management is your sole responsibility. Mention of data, access management, endpoint, and account is your responsibility, no matter the kind of cloud model that you deploy, that you leverage on. So now from the diagram, we have Microsoft taking up everything on the software as a service, then taking much on the platform as a service, then you are only responsible for three things on the infrastructure as a service. They are the ones to handle the physical host, the network, physical network, and the data center, physical data center. So the rest is your own. You and I, is our responsibility to ensure that those things are working and are secured as per the customer needs. You cannot compromise anything that is compromised. Once an information is compromised, you have already lost that trust that customer has for you. So it is important that as Microsoft is playing their role in the shared responsibility model, you also, as the customer, also take note that the data is secured, that the endpoints are secured, that our user accounts are secured, and also access management. Do not give users as excessive privilege. Give them what they need to do their job, and after that, they should be locked out, like the virtual machines I talk about at that time. You can utilize, you can leverage what they call a just-in-time access, depending on what a user wants to do, or whoever that you want, or maybe your employees. You can put in place just-in-time access. You can ensure that you can make use of the network security groups. You can also use the application security group to ensure that those things are secured, and also control the inbound and outbound access as well by setting rules, security rules, and defining the priorities and all that. You define your IP range. By default, Microsoft Azure will give you IP range of about 0 to 65,536 IP range. Why do you have this 0 to 65,536 IP range? Is because the default IP in Microsoft Azure is always using the CIDR notation IP range of about 16. Then there's one side I usually use for the. Let's be practical a little, but okay. You can go to, if you use CIDR.xyz. If you launch your first, by default, once you go to Microsoft Azure and create the first VM, you realize that there's a default virtual network. You don't need to create that default virtual network. If you look at it, the default IP is always about 16 CIDR range. You see something like 10.0 or maybe .1.0. Then 16 is usually /16. So you see that when you are when you're trying to set the security rules for your inbound and outbound access in the network security center or the network access control list, you see that the default range will be 65, between 0 and 65,336. And you see that the first usable IP will be .1. The next one will be .1. Then and that's how you see that Microsoft will defend that one by default, and the access might be denied because they know that something at least will come in between. So that's how that works. So you can take note of that. CIDR.xyz website is usually helps you to calculate those things. So now we move down to we have another important aspect of security. Now, when you have
before you go on to the other aspect of security, can you highlight examples from the Azure service that we have?
Okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead with the question.
Okay, so can you, from the Azure services that we have? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I wanted you to give you examples of platform as a service as in the Azure services to differentiate it from the infrastructure as a service. So examples of platform as a services in Azure that are actually platform as services.
Okay. You want me to mention them?
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, we missed out the slide. We talked about that. Okay, so software as a service, like I said before, before you join, we have something like a Microsoft 365 Microsoft 365 is a typical example of software as a service. Microsoft Teams, as we are using now, is software as a service, which is component of Microsoft 365. We also have Salesforce. Salesforce is a software as a service. Even your Google Drive, Google Storage, Gmail is also software as a service. We also have GitHub as a software as a service. We also have Azure DevOps is also a software as a service. So there are other ones like the tracking software for DevOps engineers like Trello, Jira, and other ones like that are software as a service. Does that answer your question? Hello, Solomon.
I'm talking about the platform as service. Services in Azure that are platform as service, yes, not services outside Azure.
Okay, services on Azure that are platform as a service.
Yes, yes.
Okay, then we have something like app service. App service is a fully managed platform where you just have to bring in your code and host. So app service is a typical example of platform as a service. Then we also have something like database, Azure SQL database, MySQL, Azure database for MySQL, Azure database for PostgreSQL. They are all platform as a service.
Thank you. That's answered my question.
You're welcome. Okay. So we move down to what we have on the board. Now, as I said before, I talked about you as a customer in the shared responsibility model, that you have your responsibility is to secure the data, access to this data, endpoints, and user accounts. So what are the tools that are available for you? Azure has made it possible for you to have something like Azure Active Directory. In Azure Active Directory, from Azure Active Directory, you can define the MFA, multi-factor authentication, to help safeguard access to user data and application, even the login and all that, managing logins and all that authentication. So you need to set that up as well. It's part of you managing access to your data. So we also have something like conditional access. Like conditional access is one of the tools in the Azure Active Directory to bring signals together, to make decision and enforce organizational policies. This helps you to kind of ensure that user access sometimes is timed or is being regulated by you through the policies you have defined in place, they are put in place. Then Azure AD, privilege identity management, is one of the things that provide you with a time-based and approval-based role activation. When you want to do something, you say, oh, this person have access to this, can do this. Like under it, you can have something like a mention of just-in-time access to your virtual machines. So they are all under Azure AD privilege identity management. So if you have any question on that, I would like to take it. Then we move down to network security too. You have something like a network security groups, NSG. Okay, let me see. Is anybody raising? Someone, Solomon, your hand is up. Do you have any questions?
Yes, my hand is up. Yeah. So my question is regarding the security. I saw one of the tools in the security is compliance management. I wanted to just I wanted to get more information regarding that because for M365, I know we have compliance in M365 where we create data loss preventions and all of that. We also do information protection there. So for Azure, how do we do that in Azure? Like, how does it work in this Azure side if we are not coming from M365? So that was one. So did you get me? I should I ask both questions at once?
I get that. Okay, ask good question at once, but I get the first one.
Okay, so for the second one, we have network security groups, right? To control traffics probably coming into our VMs. And we also have firewalls that we can create. That's the Azure firewalls that would control traffic. How can we really differentiate these two tools in terms of what they do? Since we have the network security groups, we can block a particular port, open it, give it priority. Then we also have firewall. So how can we balance these two security tools in terms of traffic coming into our portal? I think your mic is mute.
You're talking on mute.
So sorry about that. Apologies. So now compliance on Azure has to do with when you pay for a subscription. First of all, each subscription represents a tenant, and that tenant is like an organization, and you need to set up policies in place. Policies like a conditional access policy, the role back access control, and all that to ensure that you meet up with this thing. I kind of for you to set up this policy, you need to abide by. There's what they call compliance score on Microsoft Azure, and I think that we should don't worry. Let me just explain. That's what they call compliance score, and that is found under. It's a tool under Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So anytime you do something that is contrary, they're not meeting up the score. They say, I think the score is, I might not really remember the exact score that you need to score to be able to meet up with the compliance that Microsoft wants you to stay up to date on Microsoft Azure. So, but it's a tool once you implement what's called a pay for subscription, pay for a tenant. Of course, your created an organization that's your created organization. You need to put up policies in place, like abiding with putting up all those like access policies. Everything works in this level, Azure Active Directory. You have all this defined. There's what they call Azure Blueprints as well. Use Azure Blueprint to define how you want resources in your organization to be deployed. Already, maybe it's a predefined template. Then how you want these things to be implemented is where Azure policy comes into place. You use Azure Blueprint to say, I want 5 virtual machines to be created in each of my department. Those things are compliance. Or I want maybe an accountant to use TAC on account department. I want TAC to be deployed there, so it can be easy to track expense, something like that. So those are policies in place. So now those falls under Azure Blueprints. Now for policies, for this thing to take effect is when you now create policies. So all these Azure Blueprints, you cannot mention Azure compliance without them, without putting into mentioning Azure Blueprints, Azure policies, and a conditional access policy is also one of it. Even the MFA is also one of it. There's a policy that everybody must be authenticated through MFA, through a hardware token, or what can be used to identify them. So all these things are compliance. So does that even near the answer to your question?
Thanks. I think that answers the question.
Okay. Now for network security groups and Azure firewalls, you must bear in mind that one is working at the subnet level, while one is working at the resource level. Like for instance, firewalls can be used mostly at the resource level, and all that. And firewalls is a managed solution. You don't need to configure firewall most time. If you can see that most time Microsoft gives you this Azure firewall is an intelligent solution that is fully managed by Microsoft. Yours is just to activate it, to implement it. Meanwhile, in the network security groups, NSG, you have access to define your own custom rules, security rules. Like you have access to define your IP range, your ports, the port to be allowed and to be blocked. I don't know if you get that. So the major difference is that is that one is mostly at the resource level. If you can see that when you are doing something like when you are defining maybe a fully qualified domain names for maybe an application or a website that can be accessed from a subnet and network, maybe of a network, you can define the protocols and all that, and also monitor the access to the application. But now, what you should also know, what you must know is that one of them is managed for you. The other one, and though you can also have the opportunity to create custom rules, custom firewall rules. It depends, but fully, one is at the subnet level, the other one is at the resource level. Just like we have, I'm sorry, I would not want to bring in other cloud provider, but I will have used one to set an example. We are focusing on Microsoft Azure here. So I believe that has answered some part of your question. So can we proceed now?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we can proceed.
Welcome. Welcome. Okay. So we have what they call okay, I was talking about the various security tools that you as a customer, that Azure has made it available for you as the customer to use. Then we talk about in the network security. Network security groups is what we just explained. Then we have under this network security group, you have the opportunity to create outbound and inbound rules. And Microsoft Azure has given you, bear in mind that there are certain number, there are limit to the rules you can create by default. There are limit to the number of rules you can create under network security groups. You can create maximum of 1,000 rules at a stretch, or for all your entire subscription. So another tool is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. It's a powerful intelligence solution that works across multi-cloud. In fact, it's a multi-cloud security solution, cloud-based security solution that helps you to analyze what is going on in your cloud environment. And another thing, in the last Microsoft Ignite, a lot of components of Microsoft Defender for Cloud were announced. We have Microsoft Defender for DevOps, for Azure DevOps as well, of course. We have a lot of things were announced. I will encourage you to explore some of the tools that were announced during the Ignite section. You get to know more about that. Then Azure Firewalls as well is one of the tools. Then application security groups is also one of the tools that you use to control and kind of to manage the security of your Azure cloud environment. Then we have the resource management security. When it comes to, I know most of us might have used this a lot because most time we work with the resources on Microsoft Azure. So I have used Azure resource logs as well. If you lock a resource, nobody can delete that resource. It helps to prevent accidental deletion. And we have something like Azure policies I just explained. Policies will enforce some of the things, some of the decision in your company. We're happy to enforce it. Then we also have role-based access control. This one does not will prevent user from excessive use of right and role that you give to them. You can define like the contributor role, the administrator role, the user admin, all the reader role, and all those things using the RBSC. Then encryption for data at rest. This is also a security solution put in place for you by Microsoft. We have Azure SQL database always encrypted by default and all that. So we also have implement data encryption. You should also do that. There's also a tool to do that. Then we also have implement storage service encryption. You can also encrypt the disk of your virtual machines. And when it comes to like maybe your app service, Microsoft has also given you the opportunity to install the SSL, configure and install and CSL certificates as well. So you have that. So another one is that Microsoft partnered with the DigiSat to offer this service. So once you sign up for, maybe if you are deploying an app through the app service, you need to sign up to the GitHub to give you the certificate in which you can apply to your third-party registrar, maybe like the GoDaddy or any of those ones and all that, to encrypt your application or your website. And we also have, you can also configure the manage access to key vault. Key vault is also a very good service that safeguard a kind of that safeguard encryption keys. Maybe like your storage encryption keys can be stored in key vault and people will not have access to it. So that's what you can do as a customer. Then as Microsoft side of it, when it comes to infrastructure security, Microsoft takes care of the data center physical security. They're the one hiring security to protect the place, guard those data centers. Then firmware patching for your OS, hypervisor configuration. You don't need to configure a hypervisor. Gone are the day you run your physical server, you know, we still run them. You are the one to configure the hypervisor and all those things. So is there any question that someone has raised his hand? Okay. Okay.
Hi, Imoh.
Ogene, can we take a question?
So yeah, thank you very much. So I was wondering for all the Azure security that you just mentioned, where does Microsoft Sentinel come in?
Okay. Oh, I actually omitted that. Microsoft Sentinel comes into the compliance. It's one of the check that. Microsoft Sentinel come into play on that resource. You can put it as resource because Microsoft Sentinel is actually a same solution. I think I'm right. It's a same solution. There is so it comes in under resource management. So do you understand that?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have actually omitted Microsoft Sentinel. It's one of the tools which I also have mentioned. So I now to say, okay, take them for developers. There are design principles that, okay, sorry, apologies. Let me go back to where I was before. Okay. So Microsoft has a role to play, which is this. Then we have as a take-home for those of us who are developers, apart from administrators alone. Microsoft has developed some tools that run for you to use as a developer. And with these tools, it is expected of you that even as you use the tools, that you should be able to design a kind of threat modeling that will secure your code, your plan, a kind of when in the planning stage, you all understand when you developed and commit, build, and maybe go to production and then operate. You have to put all these things into place. You have to put all these things into place. You have to ensure that the IDE plugins are secured. You have to ensure that the commit hooks in terms of pre-commit and all those things are secured. Secure coding standard must be met. Peer review should be carried out within your developer team and all that. So you also ensure that static application security testing are being carried out. What I usually tell people that is to integrate testing at the integration and a kind of continuous integration stage. That will help you to arrive to a kind of have a cleaned product to deploy to production. Although testing continues, testing it cuts across every stages, but at least you must ensure that they are in place. Carry out unit and functional tests and dependency management tests. There are a lot of testing tools out there which can be used. Then secure pipelines, ensure that those of us who deploy through Azure pipelines, ensure that your pipelines are secured. Then build and test. Dynamic application security testing, then cloud configuration and validation. infrastructure scanning should be carried out. Security acceptance testing as well should also be carried out. Then another one, as a developer, if any of us is a developer among us, I always encourage developers to pay attention to security and people. Security team sometimes can be very strict and annoying. So you must always ensure that you follow the design principle that they have for you or Microsoft has put in place for you. So then when you get to the continuous, of course, where you can deploy this thing, and this thing is already in the customer end, all you need to do is to continuously monitor this to ensure that this application is safe for customer use. And also threat intelligence, you should carry out penetration testing as well. Then you should also, blameless promoting is what you should be, what should be encouraged as well. So we move down to then segmentation is also one of the strategies that as a cloud administrator, you must abide by it. Segmentation in the sense that you need to segment your network. When you segment your network, you'll be able to manage access to particular resources and be able to track any bug that can come in, any changes. Like now, if you want to have, let's say you have a this kind of this segmentation strategy will help you to have your network check at every stage, so that you'll be able to manage access to it. Anyone that you see that maybe is compromised, you can easily isolate them. Any tools that you feel that, starting from your subscription to your to implementing Azure firewalls, and every step of the way should be segmented. That's one of the best practices that the administrators should follow. So now a subscription, which is a logical isolation of environment for all resources. You can have about 10 subscriptions for one organization, depends on your workloads. And a virtual network will help you to also isolate and highly is a kind of environment that you can use to isolate your network environment, all your resources into segment and all that. So the network security group helps you in terms of managing the access to your traffic, to your resources and all that. Then define fine-grained network security policies based on workloads. That is what application security can do for you. So we have that quickly because we are very fast time. So I have some links for you to learn more, which I'm going to share. I don't know how many of us can have access, if we can have access to the chat section of this window, this section. Do you have access to the chat section? Let me paste this link.
The chat.
Or if you do not have access,
It's grayed out.
Yeah, it's grayed out. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, we do not have
that's because okay. What I'm going to do, the moderator will share the links with everybody. If you can, is that what?
You can still place it on the chat. Some of us have access to the chat space.
Okay. I have pasted it. I pasted the stuff. So quickly before we round up the section, we have a small and short section for us to test our knowledge. Is there's no this thing. There's no punishment for not getting it right. So I'm going to paste this here. All of us will interact. Oh, this is the right answer. This is not the right answer, and all that. So it's just a way of creating an interaction between us. So now we have I believe you can see my screen for the question.
Yes,
the question is: security is one of the most important aspects of an architecture. It provides the following assurances against deliberate attacks and abuse of your valuable data and systems. So, it provides this. So, which one will you think is the answer here? Which one do you think is the answer? Hello, are we all there?
Yeah. Go for A, confidentiality.
Confidentiality. Okay, this is meant to be a multiple answer anyway. I think the design is not, the buttons are not highlighted to cover, but to give room for a multi-answer. But this is a multiple answer. Can you mention them? What are the assurances that you get for having a secure cloud environment?
Integrity.
I think
For me,
it should be integrity also.
Integrity, yeah.
Okay. You will gain confidence from your customer, or even from your, when you have a secure cloud environment, like I said before, there's this confidence you will gain. You have that, okay, I have this. So integrity will also be there, and availability. So that's these
So
three:
CIA.
one, confidentiality, integrity, and available. So except it's supposed to be there. If you pick this, reliability is not there. Reliability comes into when you are dealing with the SRE, like site reliability engineers. They are responsible for reliability and all that. So we have this dash is known as securing communication path for resources on your network, so that when some resources are compromised, you can better contain the impact and prevent it from spreading laterally through the rest of your network. What would you say is the answer here?
So for me, I would say that's when you segment your network.
Okay. Any other contribution?
That's segmentation. That should be correct. Yeah.
Okay. Segmentation is correct. So now we have what's the limit to the number of security rules you can create in a network security group? We have 10,000, we have 100, we have 1,000, we have 500. Okay, 1,000.
1,000.
Yes, 1,000. So we have another one is, what is the default priority number of allowed VNet impact in network security rules, NSG security rules? What is the default?
I think it's 5,000.
It should be 65,000 because I think that's the highest.
5,000. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. How many properties can you create in the network security rules?
Properties.
So we have the first one is priority, which is the higher the number. Okay, the lowest the lower the number. Okay, the lowest the number, the more prominent it is, the more effective it is. So how many properties do we have to create? We have a priority. We have port range. We have range.
Yeah.
We have IP range. We have, okay. So I think 1, 2, 3. Okay, can we mention the number? 5, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now let's pick the. Okay, who goes with 3 or what?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, 3. Let's just check 3, but I'm not sure 3 is the answer. 3 is not the answer. What is the best way to balance inbound and outbound connections and requests to applications in Azure?
That's to balance. That should be load balancer. Yeah.
Load balancer should do that.
Okay. In the shared responsibility models, Azure is responsible for what do they do? What is Microsoft doing when it comes to shared responsibility?
Data center. Physical secure.
Okay. And this. Okay. Which of the Azure storage options is high performance durable block storage solution for business critical applications?
High performance should be high performance. It should be blob storage.
Okay. Dash 1A. of a kind physical structure located all over the world that house a group of network computer servers. What would you say is this? For those of us that joined this call early, talked about Azure Global Infrastructure. What did you say?
The data centers should be.
Okay. Now, the last one, but not the least, that is a discrete market typically containing at least one or more regions that preserves data residency and compliance boundaries.
Geography.
Okay. Azure Geography. So let's see.
Globe.
Maybe I've selected.
I think some questions were
why? Okay, let me do like this. Let me bring out this. So
No,
now
I
this
think
is
some
the
questions were not selected.
this is the answer. This is the answer. So this one is reliability. Apologies, the question was supposed to be except. Yes. So now we have this one. You guys got it. Then you got 1,000, 65,000. This one is supposed to be 6, but we chose 3. So we are wrong. Yeah, who made mention of 3? That person is wrong because I know it wasn't 3. So we have Azure Load Balancer. We have Microsoft takes care of these 3 for us, and we also have the storage. It's not block storage. So we have data centers and we have geography. So we only failed 2 among the 10 questions. Okay, let's clap for ourselves, and we've come to the end of this section. Thank you very much for coming. Tosin, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was a really an interesting interactive session. Yes, we're able to cover the Azure Infrastructure Security. We